Rehab, strangely, seems to have become fashionable among Hollywood celebrities. But in reality, kicking the habit is most certainly not glamorous, fashionable or easy.
Today, Christy Malthouse brings us the first in a series of stories that follow a musician called David. He's a man who has reached his lowest point and is now ready to take his life back again.
These are the images we usually associate with substance addiction. Desperate, homeless, hopeless. The truth, however, is more shocking than most of us realise, with the spectre of addiction spreading through society.
They are someone's son or daughter, or brother or sister. They're the person you sit next to on the bus, or the person you work with. Chances are, most of us know someone who is struggling with a substance addiction, a burden they're too ashamed to face up to or seek help for.
Conservative estimates put the number of people struggling through addiction at about 10% of the population. If you consider that each of them has a close connection with 8 others, that means that 80% of us will know someone with a substance abuse problem. Richard Smith is Program Director at the Raymond Hayter Clinic, a private facility that provides intensive addiction rehabilitation. He says that it takes a lot for people to get to the point of admitting they have a problem and that they need help.
Usually it is a crisis. The majority of clients that I would see, it's either a family crisis or a legal crisis. So there's been an intervention of some sort. Not too many of them sort of wake up one morning and go, I think I'll go into recovery today.
Addiction is usually associated with narcotics like heroin or ice, but it's a legal drug, alcohol, that causes the most misery and grief.
Most of the morbidity and mortality that happens from drug use is alcohol.
Really?
More people die from alcohol than any other drug. More relationships breakdowns, marriages, car accidents, drink driving. The impact on the community is far greater than, ice.
It's alcohol that is controlling musician David Morris's life. He has reached a low point and today is taking what he hopes is the first tentative step to a clean life.
Last year was particularly horrendous, the blackouts and people carrying me to bed and like a baby. I've ended up in hospital a couple of times, from alcohol-induced madness.
David has allowed us to be part of his recovery, to follow him through the process, to help us better understand the daily struggle of addiction. He spoke to us on day 1 of his treatment after one final drug and alcohol-fuelled binge. David had what he describes as a very privileged childhood with a loving, supportive family. He first smoked cannabis at 13, which quickly evolved to reliance on hallucinogens and opiates. He managed to kick the narcotics, but the cravings were replaced by alcohol, which has crippled his life ever since. Richard Smith has seen many people getting off one drug only to replace it with another. It's often not till addicts reach their lowest point that they finally get effective treatment.
You start off by losing your job or losing your career, and then it's losing your loved one, and it's losing the family.
Yeah.
And then you lose yourself.
And David knows that his addictions have cost him a lot.
Well, I've been drinking heavily and to the detriment of, being able to function normally in society, with other people, and it sort of rendered me virtually unemployable because of the nature of that ailment.
But he also knows that addiction in any form is unhealthy.
Some people are workaholics and drive themselves into the ground and have a heart attack. That affects them permanently.
The path ahead is long and there is no guarantee of success, but the program is staffed by counsellors who have battled their own demons. They can speak with the experience and knowledge of what clients like David are going through and can relate their own struggles by way of support. Tom Holliman is 21. In his early teens, drugs took Tom on a downward spiral, which saw him take himself and his family to the brink.
I was basically on my knees, Christy. I'd had enough. I'd done enough using. My life was gone. I didn't know what to do anymore, and I was just powerless. And it just became all too much. I basically broke down, and I just really needed help.
Tom's parents, Richard and Prue, describe his childhood as very normal, happy and active.
Strong family life, strong friendship groups. He was, I'm not saying overly popular by any stretch of the imagination, but he had some, really good friends and lots of birthday parties, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, very content.
But at the age of 14, Tom discovered drugs and found himself stealing and lying to feed his alcohol and ice addiction.
I said I would never rob someone, I'd never smoke cigarettes, I'd never drink, I'd never take drugs. And as I got older, it all just went back. And I used to stretch those boundaries. I didn't have a choice. And I went out there and I started to like the crime of it. I started to like that lifestyle. And it's also the lifestyle of using drugs.
Yep.
You can become addicted to that. You can become addicted to crime. Me personally, I did. And you get a rush from that.
You always want to believe. You want to believe that the money wasn't stolen, that your watch was picked up by someone from out of the street. And the police come and they say, how naive are you? You say, well, he wouldn't do that. He might go and steal from other people. The biggest leap is the leap of actually accepting that that's the state they've got themselves into. That's where they are in life. And understanding that in that state they don't have any of the values that you might have thought they would have or brought them up to have.
Yeah, you can't believe your child would do something, overstep the boundary that badly, and you just think, wow.
On reflection, there are things that Tom looks back on and regrets.
My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Love her to a death, but I was in active addiction, and all I could think about was getting on and having drinks and things like that. And that kills me even today that I could even be like that.
But Tom has turned his life around. He went through the rigours of rehab, an 18-month journey of self-discovery, and has come out the other side a better person. A person his mother is so grateful to have back.
It's no point really going back because you just got to go forward. You just got to go forward and say, yes, I've had these experiences. We've all had these experiences. Let's make it the most positive outcome that we possibly can.
Tom is using his experiences to help others battle their demons. He is there when they are ready, like David, to take that first step towards recovery.
I'd sit there watching things like this, just go, there's no way, look at this goose. And it's not the case. You can change. It is possible, there is hope and there is help. And sometimes you just need help.
Wow.
There's the perfect example of it can happen to anyone.
That's
from
right.
any type of
Exactly.
family.
Christy joins us now to talk about it. Christy, you spent an incredible amount of time with these people. Can you tell us about the changes that you saw?
Well, we will actually be able to see them in the next few weeks because we did, it was mainly David who we followed from the start. We saw there in that package when he first entered the rehab program, and we followed him right through. So it was probably about 4 months that we followed through, and you will notice in the next couple of weeks the changes in him. Even like physically, he loses weight, he looks fresher, he looks brighter. And the way he speaks, he's clearer, he can think better about what he wants to say and get it across better, and you really notice the difference.
So David, when you spoke to him, obviously he was right, had decided to make the big life change.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, we were lucky that we were allowed to be there on that day, but that was the first day. Now, I believe it was an intervention by his family, but in saying that, he had hit pretty much the lowest point in his life. So he was open to that intervention. I think sometimes the interventions don't work because, especially Tom was talking about it, he was saying you have to be ready. If you're not ready to make that change and to accept what has happened in your life and that you want to change it, then going to rehab's not going to work. And that's why it's failed a lot of times for a lot of people. They go to rehab and they leave a week later, 2 weeks later. Sometimes they'll even go and 6 months down the track, it happens all over again.
What did Tom say about what it's like?
What, as in
going to rehab and detoxing and getting off the drugs and the physicality of that?
It was actually really interesting to hear what David said about the fact that getting off the alcohol, because the time that he entered, he was an alcoholic, and whereas previously he had been addicted to drugs, and he said that was actually different, whereas the alcohol's actually worse. It's actually getting the alcohol out of your system is worse, and people can actually die from it.
Really?
Because their body is so dependent on it. And he said it is just an awful, awful experience. It's painful, you're sick, you can't think clearly, it's an awful, awful experience. Whereas I would have thought it would be the other way around. But apparently it's the alcohol is the hardest thing.
And it shows it can happen to any family with Tom, doesn't it?
Tom's obviously from a a really great family, and he's very articulate.
That's the thing, and when we went to this rehab centre and we met a few of the people who were there, and that was the thing, I mean, it can happen to anyone. I think sometimes when you think about it, you think, oh, they have to be a bad person, or they've come from an abusive, broken home or something, but no, it can happen to anyone. I mean, you think that possibly there's a chemical imbalance there for them to take it that step further. I mean, the rest of us can have a drink one day and we don't become addicted to it.
Yes.
Whereas these people, they do. So maybe there's a chemical imbalance there. So, that just shows that
Look forward to the next couple of parts.
Yeah, I can't wait to see them.
3-part series, yep.
We do it in a couple of weeks. We've got next week and the week after, and then after that we'll hopefully talk to someone else about it as well.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you so much, Christy. Fascinating. And we'll be back after this.